This is going to be a grand day at Kelly Station. If you've followed me, you've seen my bread making skills. So I tried baking Kathy's sourdough bread and I made a hockey puck. Literally, even the inside was black. So I'd like to introduce Kimberly Parr. Kimberly, a pleasure.
Thanks for having us here.
We must be good enough friends now. She says I can call her Kim. And we got Jeff Pavlik, a walking historian on bread making. And yeah, so we've got the beehive oven going. We got it fired up, and Jeff's going to do most of the talking here. I got a lot of questions, and hopefully Jeff's going to be able to answer them.
I'm here to answer them.
Very good. I should point out that you guys have made the trek all the way from Michigan, so it's much appreciated. And our goal in building this was to attract living historians to a place where we can share skills, and you're going to share a grand one today.
Our goal today is to make a peck of flour, which is 14 pounds of flour.
14
so we'll
pounds.
have we'll have two.
Are you hungry, Kim?
We'll have 4.5 pound loaves. So in the end, we'll have about 18 pounds of dough that we're going to fit in there. And yeah, so that's our goal, is to go through the process of bread making and how it was done in the 18th century on things that they knew. Here's how they thought about it. Oh yeah,
perfect. All right, let's do it. Here we go. Do I have to get my hands dirty?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing we're going to do is sift out our flour. Okay. So this is flour that you gave me. This is what they call whole wheat flour here, and you can see inside of it, it has these specks. Those are bran. Okay, the whole wheat, the actual grain of flour, it's just a grain, it's a seed. Down here is the germ, it's the vitamins. All around it is the bran, and that's what we're going to take off. And then the inside is the heart of the wheat. That's our flour. That's where we're going to get our flour from.
That's going to make white flour.
That's going to make us white flour. So when they ground this whole grain up, it's all mixed together. It's the whole grain. Right, that's the entire grain. Mm-hmm. Now, in the 18th century, people were generally sifting out their flour from the mill. So the miller himself would sift the flour, and what they were taking off, right? They're running it through a sieve and various types of sieves. They were taking off this. This is that bran. Bran is something that humans cannot digest, but in the 18th century, that was for animals. They had three basic styles of bread that you could eat. You could eat what they called household flour, which is your whole wheat flour. This is what came to the household. It looked like this, but there was still some bran to be sifted off. And then when we mix this, when we sift this down with this amount of sifting, we get what we'd call a wheaten flour. So it's not white flour and it's not whole wheat flour. And then if we sift it even further, we would get actual white flour. And that almost reduces that grain by nearly half. So the way that we're going to price bread in the 18th century and before was that the larger loaves of bread were less sifted and the smallest loaves of bread were the most sifted, because sifting is the labor. The labor isn't in baking. The cost isn't in the production. The cost is in the sifting. So this part right here that you can start sifting now. Just start running that back and forth. This here is a wire sifter. We of course have sifters made with various natural materials. This is a native corn sifter, native sifted corn. This is a horsehair sifter. You can use horsehair to sift it out, and each one of these is gives you an opening per square inch. And even by the 18th century, they had what they called shilling cloths. So you had a 20 shilling cloth, a 15 shilling cloth, a 12 shilling cloth, and depending on the fineness of that weave, took out more or less particle matter. So like a 12 shilling cloth was the standard cloth for the army. Right, so all army flour went through a 12 shilling cloth, which meant that it removed all this bran and almost all the big bran and most of the small bran. But it would come out like this, so where you can still see some of it in there. That's not white flour.
Close.
It's close, but that's not white.
All right.
So we're first going to just sift this all out, and then we're to measure this out and start our breads.
So I'm correct in thinking that in the 18th century, bread was sold by the pound?
Yeah, it was sold by weight.
By
weight.
And recipes were obviously figured out by the pound.
Yeah, I mean, if you read most period recipes, they don't call for a cup of this, or when it comes to bread, first of all, there's very few bread recipes in period cookbooks, and B, when they do, they'll say take a half peck of flour. Or take a peck of flour, or take a bushel of flour. They're not asking for like 1.5 cups of flour, or 4 cups. we're using weight.
And we're talking about scales that we think of bread today as I'm going to go get a loaf of bread.
Right, but you buy a loaf of bread, but it always is going to be weighed out. You know, you'll always have the weight on there.
Okay, so you're going to put weight in this to get.
Yeah, we need to make this balance. This is just a simple balanced scale. So we have some weights here because these bowls don't weigh quite the same anymore. So that should do us pretty good. And then you added some weight here.
You've done this before.
Yeah, this here will just kind of help it, you know, gravity take over.
I see my forge going. I'm going to have to replicate. I'm going to be doing some measurements.
There's plenty of great period images of them.
Perfect.
And they're just the most common part of baking because baking is based on weight. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to measure our sponge, our starter. Our goal today is to take 7 pounds of flour and make it into 2 4.5-pound loaves.
Okay.
Right. So this is a common half peck recipe. A peck of flour is 14 pounds. A half peck was 7 pounds. Soldiers were rationed 1 pound of flour per day. A voyageur had 1 pound of biscuits per day. You know, a person living in the 18th century wanted to eat a pound of flour a day.
So you're going to add the weights, which you've pre-measured, I'm assuming.
Yeah, these are all weighted out. So this is going to be 2 pounds here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 pounds of this flour, and then I'm just going to weigh it out. And this is going to be our starter, all right, our sponge. So what that means is that we're going to take our yeast, add it to this amount of flour, and give it its first rise.
Okay.
And that yeast will then start doubling as we go. Let's get it pretty even there. Looks good. I was only off by that much.
Yeah, that's pretty darn
So
close.
this is gonna be 2 pounds. So we're gonna do this once. Peter, you want to go throw that in one of those dough troughs and then bring it back to me, and then I'll fill this back up. Okay, we'll do that again. So the problem with measuring, like if we used volume, right? I could use these cups. You know, this is 3 cups here. This is 2 cups liquid. Volume changes with flour because it depends on how well it's sifted.
Okay.
You know, it depends on how much it's clumped up. So volume will change every time. We're basing our recipes on weight.
Weight.
All right. Thank you. So we're going to want our water to be like bathtub warm. If it's too hot, it'll kill the yeast. If it's too cold, it will make the yeast not want to be active. Okay. So the recipe that we're going to be doing is going to be 7 pounds of flour, and then we're going to add a portion of yeast and a portion of salt. The in-between part is water. Now the salt and the yeast are pretty much standard. Most bread recipes have a standard percentage of salt. Flour is 100%. The yeast is about 1% of the total recipe. The salt is about 1 to 2% of the recipe. The water varies. So when we're doing an 18th century recipe, if we start with 7 pounds of flour, then we can do half that amount of water. So we will need 3.5 pounds of water. So this right here is going to be 1 pound of water. So we're going to weigh out 1 pound of water, which should be about 2 cups, because a pint is a pound the world around. That's what the old saying is, right? So this should be 1 pound of water. There we go. We still need 2.5 more pounds of water later, but we're going to make our starter with 1 pound of water, our yeast, and our 2 pounds of flour. So over here what I have is the flour that we're going to use, and we have 2 different kinds of starter. We have, both of them are made with yeast, that fungus. This is a barm starter. This came out of beer brewing. And then we took some of that, we added some flour to it just to keep it alive, and now it's alive. It smells like yeast, it smells like beer, and it's a liquid starter. This here is just a piece of bread from yesterday. That a lot of our starters are levains. They're not really sourdough, they're just a piece of bread that we had made previously. We kept a portion of the dough back. It continues to rise, it continues to grow, but it has all those yeasts that are already alive in it. So we can take this, add it to our flour, and we can take this and add it to our flour, and then these will reproduce. So what we're going to do first is we'll put our old dough in here and our starter in here. We'll just put 1 pound of water in there, and then we'll throw our barm We'll use most of that up. Okay, I'll measure this again. We'll need another one of these. So what we're gonna have you do now, you can, I'll work with this one. We're just gonna make this into a paste.
Well, you do want me to get my hands dirty. Okay.
Right now, we just wanna combine this all together, and we're just gonna make a simple dough. That one should combine easier, and it's gonna be kind of thick. We can always add more water to it, but we're just starting with that 1 pound of water. Let me give you this. So you now have a 1.5 pounds of water in yours. Yeah, and because we can't account for all of it, there's always gonna be a little bit off. And every amount of flour is going to take up a different amount of water. So as much as I want to be exact about what we're doing and measure it, we're going to have a little play, a little leniency.
But you're still, the purchaser is still
getting
weight
their
of
7.
flour.
And
right?
This is how people cheat. You can add a whole lot more water to your bread and have a bigger, fluffier, softer loaf. And you could weigh out the water instead of the flour. Meaning, I can give you a 4-pound loaf of bread.
You wouldn't do
that has a,
you wouldn't do
has,
that to me,
has 4 or 5 extra ounces of water and 4 or 5 extra less ounces of flour in it. You're still getting the weight of the bread, but you're not eating water. You're eating the flour. And this actually happened quite a bit during the American Revolution. We have letters coming from generals to General Washington saying the bakers are taking 1/4 of the flour for themselves.
And selling it.
And selling it off. Yeah, they're holding it on. There was actually a time that there was a crisis of flour, and they went out and asked the bakers, and the bakers had thousands of pounds of flour that they'd been stealing from soldiers. And they're like, oh yeah, we can sell you this flour. And the kind of army's like, that was our flour. You can't sell us back our own flour.
Perfect.
Now, both of these are going to be a little off for reasons that you had just mentioned. This has liquid in it, right? So that's going to throw our amount of liquid off. This one already had more flour in it because this was dough from yesterday.
Right.
It already had flour in it. So these are both gonna at this moment already weigh a little bit different. Correct. But it's in the big scheme of things, when we weigh out our loaves, we'll see how much bread is left over. What we want to do is weigh out 2 5-pound loaves, put them in the oven, bake them, and end up with 2 4.5-pound loaves.
So was there, in the time period, was there a preference to, would they prefer the brewer's yeast compared to using leftover dough from the day before?
100%. If you look back at, like, Gervais Markham is writing, you know, in the Renaissance era, you know, he's saying we have 3 types of bread. We have white bread made with beer yeast. We have like a middling bread made with beer yeast and some levain, some leftover dough, and then we have the lowest bread, which is just they're using the sour dough that's left in the dough trough to raise their bread. Okay. So sour bread was considered the lowest form of bread. The French had figured it out, but they were vineyards. You know, they were vintners. They made wine, right? So they couldn't use wine yeast to grow their bread.
Right.
But the English, they were brewers, so they had a ready supply of beer yeast. So beer yeast was easy for them to do. So they never really worked with sourdough. So what we'll do is we're just going to let this sit here. You don't need to make it into a dough. We just want to let it rise. All right, so those are our 2 5 pounds extra that we need. So that's all of our flour, and then we'll measure out our water. So we're letting that rise in there, and then we'll reincorporate it. So then we'll take the rest of our flour and our water, and then we'll add our salt. So we still need salt. Salt is necessary for several different reasons. I mean, we think of salt as what? Like a flavoring, right? Like that's, you know, you want to have flavor.
I like my salt.
You like salt, and it's true. It gives it flavor. Bread without salt tastes different. It tastes bad. all of our ship's biscuits taste bad, partly because they have no salt in them. Salt is hygroscopic; it brings water to it. So if you're making hard bread to carry on a ship or carry in your, in your haversack, you don't want to attract water. You don't want water because it'll mold, right? So by making our biscuits without salt, we're helping prevent mold because it's preventing water from getting to it.
You're getting the nutrients without the flavor.
Right. But the salt also has another purpose. Salt actually acts like rebar. It helps kind of hold those bonds in place.
Okay.
So not only do we want it for flavor, we want it for that structure. That it's actually chemically allowing for those glutens to stiffen up, and that when we bake them, those glutens will hold in place.
Perfect.
And you'll know right away if you pull bread out of the oven and it collapses down, it's probably because you forgot your salt. And I've done that a bunch of times. I've been there, done that. One thing that I like to do, we can practice, is I like to pour salt on my hand, and I know like this amount of salt is a tablespoon.
How big the hump should be.
Yeah, how big the hump, and you just kind of learn that. And anyone that's making bread on a consistent basis would have at some point just recognized like, oh yeah, I need this much salt for it to taste
Not
good.
recommended for loading your rifle or musket.
Right, yeah, don't do that with firearms, please. So add 2 palmfuls of salt, and we'll just do it here. That way we have more of our ingredients. I'd say that's about 1 tablespoon.
That's a palm?
Yeah, that's good. Oh, just throw it right in the
right in the middle. Okay.
Yeah, that
Another
way,
one the same size.
Yeah,
about
2
like
of them.
so.
Yep, I'd say that's good.
That's it.
And do the same thing there. We're just tossing in the middle so that we remember we did it. Sometimes we go back and we're like, did we do that or not? And it's just like, it's right there in front
That's
of me.
when that loaf collapses when you take it out of the oven.
Bakers work a long time, many hours of a day, and that is exactly what happens. Sometimes you just have to make things really obvious for yourself, or otherwise you're like, did I do that or not? And once it's all mixed in there, it's kind of hard to tell. So this way I just see it, and it's like one thing left. So now all we need to do is add at least 2 more pounds of water to our 7 pounds. And this is all based off of a recipe that is not really a real recipe. Like I said, a lot of these aren't written down as recipes. We have a soldier's journal entry from the American Revolution, and he says he took his 7 pounds of flour, that's the amount that he was rationed, he gave it to the baker. The baker returned to him 2 4.5-pound loaves. Now that's not a recipe, but it's all the information we need. There's another great recipe that we have for soldier's bread, but it comes from Pliny the Elder, right? He was an encyclopedist for the Romans. And he says that soldier's bread is always 1/3 more than the weight of the flour.
Okay.
So if we have 100 pounds of flour, right, 1/3 more of that weight is 33 pounds. So that your total weight of bread should be 133 pounds of flour. So American Revolution, George Washington's having a hard time with his soldiers. So he finds this gentleman in Philadelphia, a German immigrant who was a soldier earlier in his life and now ran a bakery, a really successful bakery in Philadelphia. He trusts them. George Washington trusts this guy. His name's Ludwig. So he puts him in charge of the Continental Baking Force. So he's going to be in charge of the company of bakers. And they were recruiting people that were bakers, in their previous life before they became soldiers for the American Revolution. He gets these guys together and he's like, we're going to have a baking corps. We're going to make sure that people stop cheating us.
I'm thinking too that it beats going out in the field with a musket.
I would think so. I would think that some people that were bakers would prefer to stay to be bakers.
Right.
So this Ludwig, he goes in front of Congress, and is talking to the officials and trying to convince them that he's the man. And he's like, here's what I can do. I can take 100 pounds of flour and give you 135 pounds of bread. All he's doing is adding more water. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that fire. Right now it's heating up the middle. We're just going to push it back and it's just heat up little other parts of the oven. So we're going to just keep our fire moving. We can still keep a fire moving over on this side too.
And you don't call that a rake. What do you call that tool?
A rook.
A rook. So I always like to share wee bits of history, and the tattoo that Jeff's got here, and you did this tattoo yourself, right?
No, a friend of mine
did this one.
It's all hand done.
Most of yours are done by yourself. But so if we think about the 18th century, actually the 17th century, we had gilded trades. So they were recognized, they had apprenticeship programs. So bakers had a guild, blacksmiths had a guild, carpenters, furniture makers.
Yeah,
they were gilded trades. Well, in France, Napoleon does away with them.
Right.
So now you can relate the story to me about prisoners are in
Yes.
jail and they're going to
when Napoleon does away with the trades, like how do you prove that you are what you say you are?
Competent at
You
your
know,
trade.
you used to have a group behind you. You went through an apprenticeship, you had a guild, you had someone that they could vouch for you.
Right.
Well, now we're all on our own. So tradesmen went to tattooing themselves with their trade. So carpenters would put right angled squares on there. Masons would put a trowel. A blacksmith would have an anvil or a hammer. And so bakers would put the tools of their trade. So we have the peel and the rook. You can see those crossed over. The scale right behind me.
Is in
and
the
then
center.
Of course in the middle there is a pretzel. The pretzel has been the symbol of bakers, for several centuries. It was one of those kind of products that bakers took great pride in. Okay, so Kim, this one here is the one that we started with the ale yeast, the barm, and then this one here is the one that we started with the dough from yesterday. So you can see that they're about equal. We're going to mix one of them in here at a time. So we'll take the starter. This has our flour and our salt. We'll put it in here like this, and then make a little hole in there, and I'm going to put the water in there first. So we had 1.5 pounds of water in there, so I'm going to put 2 more pounds, so I just weighed that out. Yeah, and you can start throwing some of this in there with it. Okay. Yeah, so then I'm going to weigh out some more, just start mixing all that up. And what we're going to do now is just let it sit for a few minutes. Okay. It takes about 20 minutes for that water to soak into the flour.
So Jeff and Kim not only are bringing their knowledge, but they brought a whole lot of tools that are employed in the bread making process. So, and the different materials is pretty fascinating. So we got horn, like you would make powder horns or flasks out of, one made out of copper, and the French called that
pâte coup.
Pâte coup.
Yeah, French. Yeah, it's a dough scraper.
So for scraping, they weren't used for mixing, scraping?
No, this is for dividing dough, primarily.
So what fascinates me are ones that one needs a blacksmith shop for. And so when I'm making that scale, fine scale you've made, I'm going to try to replicate this one. So that's made, actually forged from a single piece of steel, and by the look of it, it's wrought iron.
Oh,
so
yeah, that's an old one.
It could be 17th century, 18th century, early to mid 19th century.
Yeah, this tool's good for moving dough around in the box, as well as scraping the box down, to kind of clean it up. And this as well, that's another cleaning tool. Yeah, that's a cleaning tool to get in there, kind of scrape off all your leftover dough. And then these are, designed, to work with to work with the dough as well. Now, this is called, this is honestly a little bit of a speculation. If you look up the dough scrapers in French, they're called corn. The word corn in French is horn, right? So we know that they were using horn for a tool that they now call a dough scraper.
Okay.
So I kind of made the logical leap that at some point in time, people probably were making the dough scraper out of horn.
And this is the one that really fascinates me. So I made a wooden paddle, and as I mentioned, they were commonly referred to as an oven shovel. That's my favorite. They got about 12 or 15 names, I forget. But that's made from a single piece of steel as well.
Right,
forged
that's an
out
old one.
with a taper and a ball at the end.
Yeah, this is easily could be a 19th or 18th century piece.
So you bake bread, I'll make the tools. How's
There
that
you go.
sound? Good
That
deal?
sounds good. Well, you're learning.
Good
You're learning.
trade. Good
yeah,
trade.
and then I will trade back and forth. I'll learn
Okay.
some blacksmithing from you.
Sounds good.
We're gonna knead it now. We kind of let it sit for just a short while. That tool that this tool here is good to get the rest of this dough out. So it was kind of stiff before. You can see now it's already starting to get elastic. We haven't kneaded this, but just to combine it. But you can always see that we have that stretch going on. But if we try to pull it apart, you'll see that it kind of starts breaking. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna knead it to try to make all those gluten bonds come together. So we'll just give it a good couple minutes of kneading. You can see how it starts tightening up already, but it's already smoother. You know, it was all shaggy before. That's already coming together nicely. So we want to just try to get it to be nice and smooth. Try to get it so it's gonna be too tight to pull on it right now, but you can see that it's kind of smoothing out. That's what we want. That was really nice.
All right.
Okay, so let those sit, and we're just gonna cover them up. We're gonna just give them a little while to rest again, get a little smoother. Then we'll divide it into our loaves, measure it out, and then we'll give it another quick kneading, form it into our balls, and then let it rise. This dough here is now has risen. What I'm gonna do now is scale it. So scaling it, we'll put 5 pounds of weight on this side. And then we'll start with this one here.
Okay.
And it should be about half. You know, we theoretically made we made just over 10 pounds of dough. So we'll see. Okay, so that's about 5 pounds, a little bit more. That's good.
Looks good.
And this is the one that we had added that starter to. So we're gonna take some of this out. So it should have a little more extra left. 1 second. Yeah, so this is what we started with, and that's what we'll take out of. Okay, so that's nice. Instructions for period bread is always to make it kind of flat. You don't want it too high. It'll take longer for it to cook all the way through. So by smushing it down, by having it flat, you're going to have the bread will bake evenly. And then we can go ahead and lift these up, put them on here, and you can take the other two and put them there. Just give a little space in between them.
Let them stretch.
And then we'll cover it up. Is there enough to cover up that side? Yeah, perfect. Yep. And we'll just leave that to rise. We'll let those kind of burn for just a few more minutes. And while that's just gonna rise, we're gonna pull this out. So we'll prepare ourselves to pull it out. We don't have to let the fire go all the way down. We'll take some of those larger logs out, splash some water on them, and then rake the coals. You know, rake it all into here and splash some water on there. So that it'll go into here, and then we'll close up the oven, and then we'll let the oven acclimate. So right now the oven's really hot on the bottom, it's really hot on the sides, the heat's stuck in the middle. We'll close the oven and then let it all kind of balance out. So we'll just use this as a mop cloth. I'll just tie it on there. Just something to start cleaning up the embers inside the oven. Just go ahead and dip it in the water and then just run it around, pick up some of those embers. While you're doing this, also watch where the water disappears and if the water puddles. If you get any water that's puddling, that means that stone isn't hot enough to make that water evaporate automatically. I mean, most of this should just evaporate as soon as you put it on there because it's so hot. So Peter, that's looking really good. Let's do 2 things to test it out first. I'm gonna have you stick your hand in there and count.
10.
Okay, that's probably good. So that's really hot right now. We don't want it to go much farther than that. Let me see what I have. Yeah, so that's about as warm as we really want it. We're gonna let it cool, but we don't want to get it much higher. It's probably in the 700 degree temperature range right now, I would say. You know,
Gotta get it down to
I mean, I would say
450
that
or so.
most people, right, would probably not stick their hand in the oven for that long. You're a dang tough dude, so like you handle it. Most people would have only handled it for about 5.
No sense, no
I
feeling.
I have no sense or feeling in my arms either anymore, so I handled 10 as well. But I would say that that the oven is hot enough for bread. Very soon. Like, it's not going to take us long. Sometimes
Okay.
it could take us a half an hour to let this thing cool down.
Right.
But we didn't get this thing scorching hot. We also didn't want to blow it out. It's still a new oven, right?
Right.
So as it
Thank you.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you for that.
as it hardens up, we'll be able to like put hotter fires in there. But this first fire, we didn't want to just like, watch it explode. This oven right now, we're gonna let it kind of come to temperature, and then we'll be able to load the bread pretty soon. And before we do, we'll test one final test.
I should point out the first door I made out of 1-inch pine. Had to use 2 pieces, warped. It just around a knot, it just went like a half a wheel. So that's 2.5-inch walnut.
Yeah, that will hold for a while.
And it should hold more heat
Oh, yeah.
in there.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing we could do too, we could always seal this up. If we want to grab some clay, we could always actually seal in this with cloth or clay, pack it in just so nothing leaks.
Got it.
I think the oven's ready. We're gonna throw a little flour in it. We're gonna watch how the flour burns, or if it burns. We'll watch it go down in temperature. We threw a little in it earlier and it turned black. You can see how it's slowly turning brown. That's what's gonna happen to the bottom of the bread. If it turns black all of a sudden, that means our bread's gonna just burn. So we want it to have a nice, slow browning, which just looks perfect. So we're ready to go in here. So now what we need to do, Kim, is grab your knife.
Got it.
All right. I want you to score it. So just kind of cut it like this in a big cross. What this does, you can go down a little thicker. What this does is give that bread a place to expand from. So if we don't cut it at all, it can bust out the sides or the top. It can get malformed. This will kind of keep the bread nice and pretty. It'll also give us quarters. So when we just divide it, we can kind of divide it into quarter chunks for each of us. So here you go. Thank you. And we have plenty of room. So this oven that Peter built will probably hold another, let's see, we'll count them. This holds 4, this holds 18 pounds, no problem. We could probably put 1, 2, 3. We probably can even put another 4 in there, but we can definitely put 3 more. So that is 20 pounds of dough right there. Okay, so Peter, let's just see what it looks like. It had time to rise. Let's just make sure that we're not getting any like hot spots, any burn spots. Wow, this stuff went crazy. But it's still soft, nothing's burning. I think it's just doing fine. I think just leave it as it is.
Back ones are good too.
Yeah, yeah, they're fine. We're just gonna let them sit in here and bake. Let's see, let's take a peek here. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick it up and we're going to listen for the bottom. We want it to sound hollow, like a drum, because that means that the sound's traveling all the way through. If it's underbaked in the inside, it will sound like a dull thud. Thank you. la.
Looks good. Nice. There we go.
Cheers.
Ooh, whoops. Dropped some butter. Cheers. Cheers. That's good.
We did all right.